Welcome to NBA Action. It's time to celebrate, so get on your feet. And don't you fret one bit. We'll make sure that you catch all the action. We promise to deliver all the blows. Cross our hearts and hope to die. It's opening night in the NBA, and I'm your host, Jim Fagan, and this is NBA Action.
Hold on, folks. Barkley for three! Oh, no! Inside he comes. Reverse slam jam! Kevin crossover. Bird at the buzzer! Oh, my! Here's Isaac. What a remarkable play by Giannis. Unbelievable. Oh, a spectacular move by Mike.
We begin our action in Boston, where the Cavaliers would come to take on the Celtics to attempt to get a win on the Celtics' home floor. But Larry Legend and company had other ideas, as the Big Three would dominate this game.
Here's Bird. Yes. So Larry Bird with his first.
Juan Parrish, the offensive board, the put back the teeth. Has 11.
It's a wide open Kevin McHale. Why was he so wide open in the lane? Well, he came over. Another timeout for Cleveland.
The Cavs would regroup behind Brad Daugherty's team-high 23 points, along with Craig Elo putting in 18. But in the end, Larry Legend would have the last word.
Up to Bird. Wants it. Got it. It's Bird basketball.
Elsewhere, the Knicks and the Hornets got together in Charlotte. The Hornets were looking to sting, but the Knicks were looking to strike. But one thing was clear. The game would be played in the paint, and that's Patrick Ewing's domain. He was there to let the Hornets know it was his territory.
Get out of here, says Patrick Ewing for his third block of the game.
Ewing starting his drive again.
Patrick Ewing will take it and nail it.
Ewing would also dominate from the outside.
Against the Clippers, and Patrick is doing it from everywhere.
Behind Ewing's 28 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocked shots, the Knicks would easily dismiss the Hornets. But meanwhile in Miami, there was a shootout group. Head coach Wes Sunset of the Washington Bullets and head coach Ron Rothstein of the Miami Heat are not used to winning. Both would look to change that today, and Glenn Rice would help provide some of the ammunition.
Here is Rice. Yes. Glenn Rice off to the basket. Here is Rice, who is certainly feeling it.
Not to be outdone, Bernard King would go to work and personify the work ethic and tenacity that would be needed to keep the Bullets close in this tightly contested contest.
He's been around in the 6th year from New Mexico State. Bernard King with 20 points. That is some move.
Despite King's 26 points, Rice's hot hand would prove to be too much.
Well, when you have a man as hot as Glenn Rice is, there just cannot be any space in between you and that man. You have to guard him without the ball, deny him at all costs.
The fitting end to the way this game went. It was Glenn Rice who the bulk of the game would not let his team lose. Glenn Rice hitting the clutch threes in the first half. Glenn Rice coming.
The upstart Magic would come to Atlanta to visit the Hawks. And even though they received precision passing from Scott Skiles, along with a depth-potent scoring touch from their second-year guard Nick Anderson and rookie forward Dennis Scott doing his best Dominique Wilkins impressions, let's face it, there's no one like the human highlight film, as he's more than just a dunker. He can score in a variety of ways, as he would show the Magic with his 40 points. Just watch.
Wilkins, nicely down. Wilkins.
Neat posting up and catches low for the turnaround. Got it again.
Off the pitch. Stopped in the lane, falls back with a jumper, rolls it in.
Dominique is looking for his 39th and 40th. Oh my goodness.
Elsewhere, In other Central Division action, the world champion Detroit Pistons would take on their Central Division counterparts, the Milwaukee Bucks. The Detroit Pistons are the winners of the last 2 NBA championships and only know how to win one way, as their head coach Chuck Daly would remind them.
You're not going to win it offensively. I got to have the defense. Look at the block by Rodman.
The Pistons would start to take control early in the second quarter, locking things down in the paint and smothering the helpless Milwaukee Bucks. Then defense would lead to easy offense.
He was almost out of bounds. With the foul. Umar, his first shot.
That's a big one. You always watch Joe's first couple of shots. He hits them. Look out on that.
Isaiah. 94 all.
In the end, the Bucks were no match for the world champion Pistons, who had no problem dismissing them with a 106-81 victory. The arrival of number 1 overall pick Derek Coleman to the New Jersey Nets was like a breath of fresh air to the struggling franchise. They would hope they'd have a budding superstar on their hands for years to come. Meanwhile, the Pacers already had their superstar Reggie Miller, and him and his teammates were ready to win. And though Coleman would go on to show the low-post scoring touch that made him so dominant at the collegiate level, along with the interior strength to finish with authority on the inside, and the interior intimidation the Nets so desperately needed, in the end it was not enough to stop the Pacers.
Pacers, Reggie Miller.
Have the time to be thinking about that. Here's the move by Smith to the hoop, and man, they worked hard on that.
Step to the left. Here's Miller.
The Nets would pull it close in the third behind the clutch shooting from Reggie Theus and explosive athleticism from Chris Morris. But in the end, it would be Dick Versace's young ball club that would walk away with the victory. Elsewhere, in Chicago Stadium, 2 huge superpowers would collide. For Air Jordan and Sir Charles would treat fans on this day to a game of Can You Top This?
Take a look at the matchups early here. It's Dawkins on Paxton. Michael taking the first shot of the year. Barkley on Grant again.
Here's what you got to be careful right here, because hold this ball too long.
Charles too long inside. He now has 20 points.
That's a defensive assignment of trying to guard Michael Jordan. This is Michael.
Charles is unconscious right now. He's doing whatever he wants to do on the floor.
The 2 indomitable superstars would match each other's spectacular play for spectacular play. Michael dominated on the outside while Charles dominated on the inside. The 2 would play each other to a standstill, and both coaching staffs knew that it would be the role players that would decide the fate of the game. And on this night, it would be the Sixer role players who would answer the call. Whether it was Manute Bol blocking shots, Rick Mahorn laying bone-crushing screens, or the combination of Johnny Dawkins and Hersey Hawkins looking like the best backcourt in the league, at least for this 48 minutes, the Sixers ran roughshod all over the Bulls.
And there it is, the Philadelphia 76ers with a first-half surge, never relinquished the lead after grabbing it in the first quarter. Our final score in our opening game of the TNT season of the NBA, 124-116 Philly.
Head of the young Wolfpack, Bill Muswin, made the howl to his T-Wolves. The call was for pressure defense, and his young Wolves responded with an intensity that was ferocious. The pressure didn't rattle veterans like Derek Harper and Rolando Blackman, but as for the other Mavericks, the young Wolves went for the jugular. The T-Wolves would guard the paint all night as if their life depended on it. Meanwhile, the Wolves could depend on consistent scoring from Tony Campbell and precision passing from second-year guard Pooh Richardson. Derek Harper would continue to display his poise and show his veteran leadership, and even though he was individually brilliant with 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, in the end he had to give it up to the younger Wolves for a great game played. The theme for the game between the Warriors and Nuggets in the mile-high city of Denver would be a little bit different. Head coaches Don Nelson and Paul Westhead's philosophies to the game are simpler and more direct. Score more points than the other team. Forget defense.
Adams for the three. And Mullen with a quick reply at the other end. This is Richmond. He barrels in and slices his way through. 2 on the Pirates. 11 for Lichty. Michael Adams. Oh, here's something.
Indeed he was, as the little guy was the catalyst to Paul Westhead's up-tempo attack. And Walter Davis would come in off the bench to school Chris Mullin on the fine arts of the low post game, and Todd Lichty would continue his torrid shooting with his team-high 27 points. But the Warriors would fire right back.
Mullin uncontested at the foul line.
And did we say there was no defense? Well, Joe Wolf emphatically disagreed with this big-time weak-side block shot of Sarunas Barcelona. And that's when second-year dynamo Tim Hardaway decided to put the fire out McNichols Arena his own way.
Yeah, and we may have reached the twilight zone.
Hardaway with the drive.
Oh, what a beautiful play. Hardaway breaks down 3 or 4 players. Just loses them.
Don Nelson shakes hands with Paul Westhead. And that is it. The Golden State Warriors have won the season opener 162 to 158 here in Denver. Just an incredible night from start to finish. Amazing.
The demand for NBA action has become so strong. The game is slowly but surely becoming a global game. So in the land of the rising sun, the Phoenix Suns and Utah Jazz would provide the ultimate sporting spectacle. It would become a matchup of contrasting styles, personified by 2 of the game's preeminent point guards. Utah's John Stockton and Phoenix's Kevin Johnson. KJ would try to use his cagey athleticism to give his team the advantage, while Stockton would try to use his teammates to do the same. Other players would get to display their talents, such as Phoenix's Kenny Battle and Jeff Hornacek. Blue Edwards of the Utah Jazz, along with Jeff Malone, would also get in on the action. And per usual, the mailman was delivering in all area codes, including international. But that didn't mean that he allowed everybody else to, which he would let Kevin Johnson know with this emphatic rejection. Meanwhile, Tom Chambers delivered anywhere he wanted, as he was hot all game, dropping 30 points.
About an 18 goes down. Chambers, the bottom.
Our bud player of the game, really no question about this one. Tom Chambers of the Phoenix Suns, what a night.
In the end, the coaches shaked hands. The players displayed emotions such as triumph and disappointment, which come with elite levels of competitiveness. But overall, the level of entertainment that the NBA brought to the Japanese fans was a slam dunk. Being a King or a Clipper in the NBA these days can be extremely frustrating. Darn right exhausting at times. But the game still has to be played. And even though these 2 teams are accustomed to beating at the cellar of the NBA level, make no mistake, these are still some of the best athletes in the world. And even though the Clippers would miss key personnel such as Ron Harper and Danny Manning, who were their 1-2 scoring punches, they were still able to get up and down the court. But they still had Charles Smith inside to stabilize things, as he showed everybody why he was a 21-10 guy last year, as the Clippers went on to take the game. For former college teammates and resident NBA superstars Clyde the Glide Drexler and Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, playing and competing at the highest level has been bittersweet, as both players would dazzle fans and players alike with their on-the-court exploits. However, neither player has tasted championship glory yet, as the Portland Trail Blazers and Houston Rockets have represented the Western Conference in the NBA Finals 2 out of the last 4 years, both ending up on the losing side, which means both players are still hungry for a title, and they'd have to go through each other to get it. Easier said than done. And while Clyde spent all night showing the Rockets why he was nicknamed the Glide, Hakeem the Dream would become the Blazers' nightmare by blocking everything that came his way.
Hakeem give and Hakeem taketh away.
That's right. It would be give and take between the 2 superstars all night, but in the end, Clyde's Blazers would win by 1, and we just had to show one of his dunks one more time.
Oh my, what a sensational move. Appreciate the extension. He decides right from here, the foul line, that he's going up over the top.
And in tonight's Legends Profile, we take a look at a player who's credited as being the father of modern basketball, and certainly is one of the greatest players to ever play the game, Laker legend Elgin Baylor. Taken with the #1 overall pick in 1958 by the Minneapolis Lakers, Elgin Baylor would go on to win Rookie of the Year honors in 1959. And by the time the Lakers moved to Los Angeles in 1960, Baylor had established himself as an acrobatic offensive juggernaut in which the NBA had never encountered before. A 10-time All-NBA selection, 11-time NBA All-Star, and career averages of 27.4 points per game and 13.5 rebounds, Elgin Baylor would stretch the game's imagination to its creative limits. Baylor was a player that can do it all, perhaps the game's first great all-around player. And with his swooping moves to the hoop, he was something to watch. And even though he'd be forced to end his Hall of Fame career without a title due to knee injuries in the beginning of the 1971-72 season, almost 17 years later, it's easy to see the indelible mark Baylor left on the game. Elgin Baylor, truly one of the greats of all time. And now, we take a look at a player who's the center of attention for the New York Knicks. Patrick Ewing is holding court. In 1973, Dorothy and Carl Ewing left Kingston, Jamaica, and headed for the United States. They would settle right outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in Cambridge. And then on January 11, 1975, they would send for the 5th of their 7 children, young Patrick Ewing. Basketball was a foreign game to the young Jamaican, and Patrick wasn't initially very good at it. But as he grew taller, him and the game grew closer, and it seemed as if greatness awaited his future.
I think at first he was somewhat frustrated, but once he started to see a little improvement, he wanted a lot of improvement.
At age 14, the now 6'5" Patrick Ewing would get his first taste of organized basketball with the Cambridge Ridge and Latin High School basketball team.
The one thing you knew is that once he stepped through the doors to practice, you were going to get 110% out of him every single day. I mean, he never ever had a bad practice when it came to how hard he worked.
And by the time Patrick was in the 10th grade, he had grown to be nearly 7 feet tall. And with all his hard work and determination, his skills had finally caught up with his height. He would not only become a dominant player, but the top high school prospect in the nation. With Ewing as the centerpiece, he would lead the Cambridge Ridge and Latin team to a 77-1 record over the next 3 years, along with 3 straight state championships. Ewing would go on to attend Georgetown University, where the 3-time All-America would lead the Hoyas to 3 national championship games in 4 years, winning it all in 1984. Take-home Player of the Year honors in 1985, and his stellar career would lead him to be college basketball's most celebrated player, which then would open the doors for him to become the NBA's newest superstar. The Knicks would take Ewing #1 overall in the 1985 NBA draft, where he'd be christened immediately by the Knicks as the savior of the franchise. And even though he'd go on to win Rookie of the Year, for the first time in a long time, he found he was unable to dominate at will.
So it looks like a frustrating evening building here for Patrick.
Yeah, I remember one time we had a Patrick Ewing poster night, and I had been hurt, and I came back for that game, and I had a bad game. I remember people ripping the poster up, throwing it on the floor. It was rough. It was rough.
Injuries and lack of talent would only allow the Knicks to win 182 out of a possible 410 games in the Ewing era. And even though thus far there's been minimal playoff success, Ewing has continued to elevate his game every year he's been in the league, becoming a perennial all-star and a force to be reckoned with. Last season would perhaps be Patrick's best in the NBA. Always known as a dominant rebounder and defender, he would join amongst the league's elite in scoring, averaging almost 29 points a game while grabbing 11 rebounds and blocking 4 shots. And if last season's performance is any indication, then Ewing has just put the NBA on notice.
I was just pumped up. I was ready to play. I was ready to win.
One of 4 centers in the last 22 years to be drafted #1 overall, make the All-Star team, and win Rookie of the Year all in his inaugural campaign. Can you name the player shown here that was not able to accomplish all these feats in his first year? The answer when we return. Now, the answer to our trivia question is Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. While Olajuwon would be drafted #1 overall by the Houston Rockets back in 1984, and he would make the All-Star team in his inaugural campaign, he would not take home Rookie of the Year honors, as the player responsible for keeping Olajuwon from accomplishing all 3 goals in his first year would be none other than the Chicago Bulls' Michael Jordan, who was picked 3rd overall in the '84 draft and took home Rookie of the Year honors in 1985. We now return to NBA action. Fasten your seatbelts and keep your eyes glued. Here are our top 10 plays.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In our courtside countdown. At 10, Dennis Hopkins puts the Sixers in a spin cycle. At 9, Scott Skiles show the Hawks the meaning of more bounce to the ounce. At number 8, Thunder Dan takes flight against the Jazz. At 7, Isaiah plays peekaboo with the Bucks. At 6, the mailman says, "Get that weak stuff out of here, KJ." At 5, here comes Tim Hardaway and Chris Mullin. At 4, Joe Wolf howls at Sarunas Marciulionis. At 3, Action Jackson stings the Hornets. At 2, here comes Clyde. And at number 1, it's Clyde again, this time showing Kenny Smith why they call him the Glide. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Jim Fahey. See you next time.